All right, even though we are a minute before start time, I'm just going to begin the introduction because we have a lot to go through. So, hello, everybody, and welcome to our special session today with Huron Consulting Group, all about accelerating your Oracle Fusion Cloud conversion. So, I'm Stephanie, and I will be moderating today's webinar. Since this is a quicker session, I just want to go over a few things as fast as possible before handing it over to our hosts, Ray Mendez, Dave Dozier, and Steve Dozier. Not related, but interesting. So everyone will receive today's recording by the end of the week. And then after Ray and Dave present, we will begin our Q&A portion. During the session, feel free to put your questions in the Q&A box down below or in the chat, and we will only answer them during that Q&A part after the presentation, just so that we can go through it all and get everything done, basically. And this is our second to last session of the day. So there's still time to register for our last one if you'd like to join us. If you can't make it, don't worry because we will be sending the recordings anyway. So even though I might be biased, it is better to join the live sessions, especially for the Q&A and to talk to our experts. But let's get to what we are really here for. So I'm going to now pass it off to our Director of Partnerships here at More for Apps, Steve Dozier. Steve?
All right, thank you, Stephanie, and thank you everybody for attending. Welcome. I wanted to introduce my partners, Huron. Huron is a publicly traded $1.49 billion global consulting firm. It's a top Oracle Cloud implementation partner with over 500 clients on Oracle Cloud. It's been voted the best firm to work for by Consulting Magazine for the 12th year in a row, and the best management consulting firm by Forbes from 2018 to 2024. What you can expect from this session is some real-world lessons learned in implementing Cloud ERP. You'll learn about how Huron and More for Apps collaborate to best serve Oracle customers. And most important for you and the audience is what you should expect when working for a world-class consulting organization. So I think you'll get some guidelines on what you should expect and demand from your consulting organization. I'd like to introduce Ray Mendez. Ray is the Senior Director in Huron's Energy and Utilities Digital Practice. He's led multiple Oracle implementations and has over 25 years in the ERP technology space. In addition, he'll be joined by Dave Dozier, who's the Director of Energy and Utilities Digital Practice, holds a designation of Certified Public Accountant and Chartered Global Management Accountant with over 25 years in the ERP space. Ray and Dave, I turn it over to you, and thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Appreciate that, Steve. And I will share my screen. So thank you for the warm introduction and walking through a little bit of Huron. I'll just add a couple of more things about Huron. As Steve mentioned, we're definitely a good size organization, but we're not so big that we're one of the big four, right? We think of ourselves as the Goldilocks. We don't try to be all things to all clients. We're very particular in terms of the industry that we focus in on, and so that we can really develop some ingrained capabilities within there, understand some of the regulatory requirements, understand some of the leading practices of those industries. So energy and utilities, manufacturing, CPG, financial services, and healthcare and education is where we focus a lot of our time. We are a global firm. We have locations obviously in the US, but we also have locations in India, Singapore, parts of Europe as well. We've expanded into France, United Kingdom, Germany, and Switzerland. So again, we are a global firm with global reach. So let's get into today's topic. And so we're focusing on understanding a little bit more of how do we make the transition from EBS over into the cloud, and what are those things that are different as we walk through that process, right? So the big shift here, when we look at the long poles in the tent, typically when you were doing an on-premise implementation, you would walk through the requirements. As part of the requirements process, you would look at the fit gap analysis to understand where you needed to have customizations, right? And oftentimes the custom development timeline drove what was going to be the length of time required for the implementation, right? That was usually one of the long poles in the tent. Now, that's one of the big things that's different about the cloud, right? Like, the big difference here is no longer are you customizing the application. It's really more adopting standard leading practices that Oracle provides, as opposed to developing some of those customizations. So the long pole in the tent really becomes the data conversion activities, which again, we're going to have a really strong focus walking through that today. Master data management, integrations, and then change management. Change management becomes paramount because now you can't do exactly what you were doing before in EBS from a customization perspective, right? Also, some other things to highlight: you lose direct access to the database. Unlike on-premise applications where you had full control of the full technical stack, once you're in the cloud, Oracle manages the infrastructure layer, and really they give you access at the application layer to be able to configure the system how you need. And so again, it becomes paramount to leverage leading practices. There are some cases, and we can talk a little bit more about this as well, but I'll give you an example. In energy and utilities, there are some regulatory requirements that have to be met that unfortunately Oracle doesn't have out of the box. So we have developed some intellectual property that allows us to address some regulatory requirements, such as FERC, as an example here. But yeah, the other points to bring up: user empowerment. So cloud tools are more user-friendly, enabling business users to model and report with less IT dependency. So think of that more as a drag and drop as opposed to develop specifications for IT. And then again, I want to reinforce, adopt the cloud functionality as delivered. And one of the things that we like to do is we're walking through, understanding what we do is, as opposed to sit down and saying, hey, what are your requirements? We bring with us, hey, here's the functional catalog, as we call it, for your industry. These are the standard requirements that are out there. And again, we'll walk with you to understand if there's any modification required there, right? But the idea here is to avoid customization, reduce the risk, and increase upgrade compatibility, right? So again, I just wanted to stress that. Next slide here walks us through a little bit of avoiding some of the common pitfalls of implementations. And so we wanted to highlight some of those here. I've highlighted in bold, but all of these are important areas that you want to cover as you're thinking about an implementation and moving to the cloud. So, one of the things that I keep stressing about is do not customize, try to adopt the functionality. And one of the things that we do is, hey, we look at if there is a gap, and we'll work with Oracle. There's also Customer Connect within Oracle that looks at the functionality that Oracle is releasing over the next set of releases. And so oftentimes what ends up happening is if the functionality isn't there, it might be there in a future release, right? There is a lot of research and development that Oracle is putting into their product, billions and billions of dollars that are spent, and they're continuing to invest in that platform. We also like to have key resources dedicated to the project. As you can imagine, it's a difficult situation for folks that are engaged on this project of the implementation, that are taking on not only their day job, but in some cases they might be taking on other projects. Something of this magnitude, we would recommend to stay away from having a resource that's dedicated to multiple projects and also taking on their day job, right? So try to have dedicated resources, some of the key resources, some of the track leads, the project manager, folks like that you would definitely want to have focus on your project here. Leverage onshore resources for collaboration and efficiency. So in other words, what you'll see from a lot of different organizations is that they'll try to have an implementation that is primarily offshore driven. Our approach is, hey, we want a high touch approach, which is to say we have onshore resources working with you from a design perspective. And as we get further along in the project, those hours go less and less, and we have more offshore. But again, that's where we get into the phase of building the solution and iterating through some of the testing activities. Focus on data conversion, right? We can't stress that enough. Start data conversion early and often. Plan for multiple rounds to identify defects and reduce downstream risk. So what we like to do is, at a minimum, to have the conversion be part of a step that we're taking prior to each of the testing rounds that we walk through. So that could be 3 or 4 rounds of testing that you walk through from a data conversion perspective. And as you get closer and closer to the go live, you want the conversion to be more of a mock go live conversion, and really getting down to, hey, what's the time required, right? Are we going to be offline for 3 days? Are we going to be offline for 2 days? Whatever that ends up being, we want to make sure we have a good, clear understanding before we go into production. And then allocate sufficient time to the design. I can't say this enough. I get the fact that we're moving away from customizing the system and we're using what Oracle gives, but we want to give enough time available because there is a multitude of ways you can configure the system. And we want to configure it in a way that it makes sense for your business, for where you are in your process, and understanding your overall culture, right? All those things have to go into play as we develop what that final solution looks like. All right. We come to our first survey. Stephanie, if you don't mind bringing up the first survey.
Okay, there we go. Do you see it?
I do see it. Yep.
Yeah. So where are you on your Fusion Cloud ERP journey? We'll give everybody like 30 seconds or so just to keep it moving. A lot of people already on cloud. All right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
A lot of folks are already on Fusion Cloud.
Staying on current ERP.
Yeah.
All right. Last call. All right. Yeah. So majority already on cloud.
All right. Thank you so much. All right. So just talking about how we look at implementation approach and pillars of success here. So for Huron, we have what we call our pillars of success, which is driven by 11 pillars, which is direction and scope. So again, having clarity on what you're trying to achieve. And from a direction perspective, you want to have senior management involved in sponsoring the overall program. It could be a CFO, it could be a vice president, but typically you want to have somebody high up enough from a stakeholder perspective that can drive some of these change that's required. You want to build a strong team, right? So at Huron, we're very conscious of that. And you know, it's one thing to have the name recognition, but it's also important to look at the resumes and make sure that the folks that are being brought in, especially for the leadership positions, some of the track leads, some of the project management roles, that they've had experience. We often like to have folks that have industry related experience, right? So that's something that we're very key on as well. Strong project governance. What we're basically saying there is, hey, what is that decision making process? Oftentimes when we look at organizations, one of the things that we find, there's a lot of folks that are empowered to make decisions. The only issue you run into when it comes to projects of this magnitude is that you kind of get stuck in analysis paralysis. And so you want to really have a clear guidance on what those decision rights are up front, as opposed to trying to figure it out while you're in the project, right? So we often recommend putting a RACI chart together, or another model that we've seen out there used before. It's called Rapid Framework. And then, kind of make sure you've got the right governance in place, where you start walking through, what is the escalation approach? How do we get up to steering? What are those things that we're taking? What are some of those decisions that are being made? How are we empowering the folks on the ground to make decisions? So all of those things you want to work out ahead of time and have clear guidance through. Deployment approach and timeline, right? So one of the things you want to do is take a look at, what are the different ways you can approach? You can do big bang, you could do a phase approach, you could do a functional rollout, you can do a business unit rollout. So there's different ways you can roll out your future state environment here. Again, we're very strong on leading practices, so we believe in looking at the consultant's background, what kind of industry experience do they have, because oftentimes they might not understand your industry, and so you spend a lot of time just getting them up to speed and understanding how the industry works, for them to give you some good advice as you move forward there. I'm not going to drain the rest of the slide here, but all of these things you want to take a look at and focus in on. The next slide here just talks about what we call our CLEAR methodology. CLEAR stands for collaborate, listen, engage, assess, review. Although we've done hundreds and hundreds of implementations at this point, hundreds of successful clients that we continue to work with, we do try to assess. We'll do retrospectives and make sure if there's some adjustments that are required on the project, we want to address it now and not wait till the end of the project, right? So let's address those things that might not be working from a cultural perspective that we want to make sure we address, right? And so our methodology is a hybrid methodology. It isn't pure waterfall and it isn't pure agile. We have the phasing approach that you typically see in a waterfall methodology, which we think is still important to have. Where we look at an agile approach is as part of the development. As we iterate through the development, we go through some of the testing from a conference room pilot perspective to get your feedback and make adjustments along the way here. Now, it's all enveloped with project management throughout the life cycle. We also have change management capabilities that we can bring to bear. Whether we do it or whether the client does it, we still think it's an important aspect that needs to be there. And then we're also monitoring from an external perspective, project health, engagement assurance, and then at the end of the project, we also do a net promoter score to make sure that you're as satisfied as you can be. The next slide here walks through the understanding of our approach to data conversion. There is a lot that's on the slide here. There's a lot of steps to enumerate below. So one of the first things that we do is we sit down with the client, understand what is the quality of the data that they have. And based off of that, we then start looking at what are those strategies. Now, Dave Dozier is going to dive a little bit deeper into what we call our conversion application toolkit that allows us to do kind of an accelerated method to do conversions. And he's also going to talk through more for apps, right? What are those opportunities to use more for apps from a conversion perspective? But yeah, the point here is we use our CAT tool, our intellectual proprietary tool based off of Clover DX, based off of AWS as the infrastructure, and all the data that we're working with. It is not something that we're saving out there. So from a privacy perspective, all of that is being handled in the right way. But yeah, we often use the CAT tool for large volumes of conversions. So for example, if you've got a lot of suppliers or customers, we want to have an automated way of extracting the data and taking it through its paces, the transformations, all of that needs to happen, and then eventually loading it into Oracle using Oracle standard tools, whether it's AFDI or FBDI, whichever method Oracle has available for us to use to load the data. In cases where customers don't need a conversion tool like CAT, we do look at more for apps. It's very useful. You can build your Excel template and add your data and manage the data going forward to use your future instances going through the implementation project, right? So again, that's a little bit of how we think of data conversion. And then as we look at the common conversion challenges, right? So let's take a moment to talk a little bit about what we've seen in data conversion projects, especially when moving to Oracle Cloud. These are the areas where projects can stall or fail if not addressed early and strategically, right? So one of the challenges is data complexity and volume. Large volumes of data and complex legacy structures can overwhelm standard tools. Tools like More for Apps help manage off-system staging and simplifying large data sets, ensuring data quality and accuracy, right? So if you've got bad data, you're going to make bad decisions, right? That's why we emphasize strong data governance from the start. So depending on where the client's at, let's say they're on EBS, and what we would recommend oftentimes is cleanse the data in that environment, and make sure you've got data governance around that cleansing process, so that by the time we get to the end of the project, we're not having to re-cleanse the data because you didn't have data governance on and control over how that data is being managed. The alternative is, hey, if we don't want to go through a data cleansing exercise in your legacy system, you could use More for Apps to allow you to use that cleansed data, have that categorized outside of the system in the Excel files, and continue to clean it up using that method. Time pressure and project deadlines, tight timelines for shortcuts. Our proven methodology and refine over many implementations helped us to stay on track. Again, we feel like More for Apps and CAT really helps to accelerate some of those key tasks. And then also limitations of the standard Oracle tools, right? So Oracle's native tools are powerful, but not always user-friendly. I mean, if you look at some of the stuff that they do from an FBDI perspective, I mean, there's so many tabs involved, so many columns. More for Apps, it's all in one place. Business involvement and buy-in. Conversion isn't just technical task. You want to establish clear roles like data stewards. And give them tools that are comfortable with, like Excel, right, which is really More for Apps here. All right, I'm going to hand it over to Dave, and he'll walk us through introducing More for Apps, and a little bit later walk through a demo as well. Dave, please take it away.
Yep. So it is. I almost have trouble telling you where to begin with. I love More for Apps. As a consultant, as an implementer, if I were in a business using it, this would be my favorite tool on the planet. I have been using it. It's important to note, Huron actually has a partnership with More for Apps. This is a tool that we buy for our Huron consultants when we go into an implementation project. So you can kind of see here, it's an Excel-based application, but it is so much more than that. You can see all of the different areas within the finance area, within projects. I should let you know, I am in the energy and utility space, so I spend a lot of time in the projects world. I love More for Apps with projects. You can see these things here. If you are in a project-centric environment, this is a tool you really need to look at. There are a lot of things in Oracle, as Ray was talking about, from a conversion perspective, that Oracle provides tools for. And I give kudos to Oracle for that. FBDI, file-based data import, great tool. Only if you've never seen More for Apps. It is not connected to the database. It's file-based. You have to type in your information. You have to submit it over to Oracle and load it in order to validate it. All of these things I'll show you in a quick demo in a minute, how More for Apps is just very succinct, very consistent, very easy to use, and very efficient. As an implementer, I'm always looking for efficiencies. So we can go ahead and go to the next slide. When you're thinking about the data conversion, Ray hit on volume. I have clients that have had millions of GL transactions or project transactions to convert. Those transactions may span over many years, depending on what the client desires. Huron has developed our CAT tool to really help us make that process more efficient, and to be able to do transformation and rules approaches within that tool to help streamline the conversion process. There can be a ton of effort involved in a conversion. And because that becomes an iterative process over a year and a half, over 2 years, the trick is always trying to identify the issues early, get data cleansed, so that as you go forward with each step, you get better and better. For Huron, we set targeted percentages. It's each stage of our development cycle as we execute conversions, so that there's a monitored process that tells us that we are seeing success, we're seeing improvement. Now, more for apps comes into play, and where I typically look at it is if I have a client who has an off, you know, not really off kilter, but maybe an off premise system like a QuickBooks or something, not an EBS, then I'm typically recommending to my clients, hey, you've got 200 customers that you're doing in QuickBooks and you're doing invoices. There's anything there to convert. Instead of trying to extract that data out of QuickBooks, which is not going to be effective or efficient, let's take that data, let's get it presented into a template within More for Apps, and then we save that and we load it. And we see the issues we have. And then you keep that data cleansed. And as you go instance to instance through your transformation cycle, you can just simply connect that template to a new instance and load your data. You can validate, load it. So simple, so easy. And that is very effective when we have not so large volumes. If you've got 50,000 customers, we're probably looking at our CAT tool just from a data cleanse effectiveness and the large volume. We can go ahead and skip on to the next slide. So from a real world perspective, I use this at clients. I'm using it at a client right now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take over and share, and I'm just going to run you through a little quick demo of using More for Apps in the case of creating a project template. Now, I mentioned I come from the energy and utility world. A lot of my clients are project centric. That means they have lots and lots of projects. And so they end up with lots and lots of templates, which help them manage the whole project creation process and the ability to track their cost. So let me...
One other point I'm going to bring up, Dave, real quick here, just to kind of speak to, what's been our engagement with the More for Apps tool. We do use it in energy and utilities, but we also use it in manufacturing. We also use it with our nonprofit organizations, and we've also have used it with construction organizations. So it's not, specific to one industry. It really can be used by a lot of different industries as well. Then the last point here to bring up before Dave goes into the demo, again, and Dave, you could attest to this. It has helped save 40% of our standard time from a conversion perspective by using the tool like More for Apps to help us along in that process of the data cleansing and the loading and all of that, right?
Yeah,
so we
and
can't
I'm going to talk a little bit
on the real world benefits of it.
Yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about that time saving as I do my demo and relate that to the stages that we go through in an implementation to really help exemplify the efficiency you get with More for Apps. So let me share here. So can y'all see my screen?
We can see it, Dave. Thank you.
Okay. So what I have here is just a project within the project module. I have a project template. And the first thing you see here is this section. This is the important section that tells me when I upload data into the cloud, it tells me if it was accepted. It tells me if it had errors. It gives me that status update. So as I go through this, I'm going to refer back to here. I've got some data in here already that I've loaded previously, and you can see everything is green. Green is good. Everything's accepted. That has been passed right into More for Apps. So, but if I go across and you talk about project templates, you've got your project header, and I'm not going to go through every single column or anything. This is really to show you about the expediency and the efficiency and the value that More for Apps brings in this case of project templates. But I've got all these columns. So all this information that's been populated as I scroll across. Notice this is nice and organized. I can put in information and capture things like classifications. I haven't identified team members, but I can do team members. I can do customers. So if you're doing customer billing, you can identify customers, tie those to the projects, which facilitates your billing process. I've got my task. So any of the tasks that I would have for my project, got those identified. And I've got all the information related to my task. I don't have any task controls or project header controls, but those are available. And if I go out here, I have quick entry. And what quick entry is, these are questions that when you create a project within Oracle from the UI, it poses these things as questions so that you can mark them as being required, where when you try to create a project using this specific template, it forces you to provide that information to avoid errors. Now, I'm going to just simply go across here. I'm going to highlight all this. So I've got all of my project information highlighted. This has all been accepted. I'm going to go down here where I have some test data set up. This is where I want to create a new template. And I will tell you, as I use this tool, every time I use it, I learn something different that makes it better. So just be aware of that. So the first thing I'm going to do is, before I load my data, I want to be able to validate it. If you're using a tool like FBDI, file-based data import, which Oracle provides, which you can use, there's no way to validate your data beforehand. That has to be loaded into Oracle and then validations executed there, which basically means you try to load the data, it fails, you get the messages, you clean up, you rinse and repeat until you solve all your errors. With More for Apps, this is a huge benefit. If I just hit validate and I'm going to validate my selected records, it is doing all the validation for me right now. It's saying, hey, I'm looking through, I'm hitting all those validations, and it's going to tell me if it finds an error. Without an error, then I can simply go to the upload step. So it's going through, it's executing. Got a lot of information in here, but this is very, very efficient compared to trying to load all the data directly in to then get your errors after the fact. And so now it is executed and validated. So if I go back here to the beginning, notice I see for all the spots where I added data and all the different rows, everything is validated. No errors. If I had an error for a different section, a box would show up in red, and in that corresponding record, in the header message or in the task status, it would give me my specific error message. That is important because in Oracle, if you use EBS today, sometimes you get cryptic messages. Sometimes that happens in cloud. File-based data import might give you a cryptic error, and you have to decipher that. More for Apps is giving you specific, detailed error messages to help you quickly evaluate where your issue is right here in your file. So since all of my data is validated and I don't have any issues, I'm just going to highlight these rows again. And I'm going to tell it to upload. So if I do upload selected, now it is updating the records and taking those and inserting and creating this directly in the application for me right now. And if it encounters an error, it will tell you if it has an error. We're looking for green. Green is good to tell me that it's all accepted. So it didn't give me any error messages back. So now if I go back, now I've gone from validated to accepted. So that took 4 minutes. Now, here's the important piece of what you take from this is if I had 100 templates to create, I could build this template out, set it all up, I could validate it, I could load all that data in probably about 45 minutes. So where you saw that 40% savings and time efficient can vary. But what I have experienced on a current client right now is it would take roughly 2 days to effectively go through and manually create the project templates, validate them, make sure they're set, and be complete with that. And then I have 2 days of that. I have 4 stages in the project where I would need to do that. So I'm looking at about 8 to 10 days of effort to do. That effort is saved. Morpher app saves me roughly 7 to 9 days. I'll give it a whole day. Let's say it took it. You can see here, it took me 4 minutes. That's roughly 45 minutes to load all those. Multiply that times 4. Let's call that 5 hours. So let's say a day. I'm still saving 9 days on what it would take to do this 4 times manually in 4 different environments as I go through my implementation process, which is a huge savings. Now, if we go back, let me stop sharing. Can we go back to do I need to reshare the slide deck?
I got it here, Dave. I will
Okay.
bring it up. And we'll
What's
go from there.
what's important with that is that if I take all the different areas where I can use Morpher apps, I start compounding how much time I'm saving and how much efficiency I get out of this. So that is a legitimate real world impact that I have experienced multiple times on clients where we are doing the implementation. That reinforces what I said earlier. Huron is a partner with Morpher Apps, and we're a partner because we believe in the application. And every time we go into an implementation project, we're looking to buy a license for Huron for that project so that we can utilize this tool. So if we want to go ahead and go to the next slide. Okay, here's the survey.
Survey number 2.
Yep, I'll pull that up in a second. Launch. Okay, there you go.
Excellent. Which of these benefits would be most impactful for your organization? Significant time savings on project tasks, higher data accuracy and reduced errors, greater business users involvement and empowerment, overcoming limitation of standard Oracle tools, or all the above?
Give it a few more seconds. Okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
Excellent.
All of the above.
Thank you so much. Yeah. And then Dave, your last slide here. How do these results benefit you?
So you see lower project cost, faster time to value. The significant time savings we achieve on critical conversion tasks, like the 40% reduction we talked about, often means lower project cost. If it takes me as an implementer less time, then that is saving money for the client. A direct correlation and relationship. The faster, more efficient that the conversion process allows our organization to move and go live with also is a direct savings, getting you to the cloud, getting you live faster, which is always a point we strive to. Those things are vastly important. Increased confidence in your business data. If you're using Morpher apps, and I showed you a configuration where I created a project template, you can use this to manage data as well. You could use it to manage your customers, manage your supplier data so that you see that and you're just making updates in mass right from Morpher apps and updating that into the database. Again, that drives confidence in your business data. It's also going to drive the third one, empowered teams and smoother operations. It's going to drive confidence in your business users. Your business users can use this tool. There is nothing technical, no technical knowledge or training that needs to happen in order to be able to utilize this tool and be able to manage that data going forward, to help and use this tool when you're in a conversion process so that you just continue to alleviate the need to have a requirement or a focus or a need to say, oh, hey, I need to update these 500 projects or these 500 suppliers. Either I have to go through individually in the application, or I have to go and get IT to use a tool, FBDI, or I have to figure out how to use FBDI, or I have to use a tool like Visual Builder that Oracle provides this a REST API. And I mentioned that tool. You may see it. It's an Excel-based add-in tool. One distinct difference in that, you are building that yourself. You have to know how to use it. There is limited support out there for it, but you're going to spend a lot of time in Customer Connect trying to find information on that to be able to utilize it. Morpher Apps is a one-stop shop. If there's a REST API out there for projects in finance and stuff like that, a good chance it already is in more for apps, or it's something that is coming along. So again, that benefit of empowering your business users to be self-sufficient to manage their process. With that comes reduced project risk and greater predictability. You know that if somebody asks me, hey, Dave, when we go to UAT, how long is it going to take you to create the project templates for this customer? Well, you got 128. It took me 4 minutes a template before. So I can do the math and tell you with great confidence it's going to be a day or less. It's not going to be 10 days because I don't have to manually do it, or longer. And it's going to be very accurate because I've got the data right there. And all of that leads up to maximizing your return on your Oracle Cloud investment. You're not spending time trying to, how do you manage your data? You're spending your time actually being able to empower your business users to do it. The structured approach, all of that, smoother, faster data conversion with higher quality, engaged users ensures that you have a significant investment and realize and maximize that investment that you're putting into Oracle Cloud. That is something that Huron takes very seriously, and we look to educate our clients on and find all the different ways we can help maximize your return on your investment when you go with us and look to us to help lead your project.
Excellent.
Ray, I think that's
Yeah, no, I appreciate all
it.
that, Dave. And you're spot on. You know, we can't contain our enthusiasm of working more for apps, because really it has been a game changer. And we just want to remind you guys, when it comes to these type of implementations, partner with Huron for success. Why? Well, because we've got proven expertise, measurable results. As Dave alluded to there, you know, you're looking at a 40% savings on the key conversion task, which is a direct savings to the client. We also have other accelerators that we have built either internally or use through third parties, such as Rapid for Cloud or OpKey. Rapid for Cloud for some of the configurations we're doing, OpKey to help us with some of the testing-based activities. There's many other examples of accelerators that we built. So again, a direct savings back to the client. User focus and sustained success, our approach. Integrating tools, empowering your business users, leads to higher data quality. As we saw in one of the surveys here, that was an area that a lot of folks wanted to take a look at. Increased productivity long after the initial go live. So in other words, you can continue to use these tools for mass data uploads. It's not just something that's required from a use case perspective, just for conversions. It's also for a long-term utilization there as well. Reduce conversion risk, increase data confidence, right? So our structured methodology, strong emphasis on data validation, strong emphasis on data governance, significantly minimizes data-related risks, ensuring a smooth Oracle Cloud transition. Enhance efficiency beyond standard practices. So we strategically use tools that overcome common limitations, as Dave was alluding to earlier. Visual Builder, FBDI, you know, using more for apps gets you there. And then maximize your cloud investment, right? So our methodology ensures you achieve the faster return on your Oracle Cloud investment through accurate data, more engaged users, and quicker path to leveraging the full power of your new system. So again, I appreciate everybody's time.
I have one more comment.
I will hand it over to Stephanie.
Can I make one more comment, Ray?
Go ahead.
Sorry, this was something, and we kind of figured this out as something that's kind of obvious, but it didn't come about. The current project I'm working on, they're an EBS client. And something that you should consider, and something Huron will consider going forward, is that if you're on EBS, you can use more for apps in EBS. So that data cleansing process during conversion, as you take data from your legacy application, whether you use more for apps or you use the CAT tool that Huron talked about, you can use more for apps to cleanse that data in your legacy environment and avoid that issue going forward. And that is a huge advantage in consideration when you think about using more for apps in the cloud. You also could use it if you're a legacy EBS customer in your existing EBS instance to help maximize that data cleanup process and to make your conversion as efficient as possible.
Excellent.
All right. Yeah. That was Steve. Oh, Steve, you're on mute. Go ahead. You're on mute, Steve.
I was told I was preferred to be on mute, but
Yeah.
in any case, one comment that Ray and Dave had been very gracious to talk highly of More for Apps and share a lot of our benefits and advantages. But one thing I want to mention is we've done a survey. More for Apps has approximately 450 EBS customers and 50 cloud customers on Oracle ERP. And we've done a survey of our customers, and the top three things that they've requested from that they've mentioned that they want from a system implementation partner are: number one, best practices and recommendations, especially around data cleansing. Number one. Number two, recommendation of third-party tools. What else can I use beside what Oracle provides for me to make my life better and easier? And number three, this cloud is a whole new world. How can I adapt my business processes and ensure post-migration success? And in our experience with Huron and our partners there, they meet all of those criteria. So as much as they've been able to say great things about us, I just wanted to return the favor with the endorsement on them. They're really in the sense of what customers are asking for when they work with an implementation partner. Also, the communication is to the T. I'm a vendor, and there isn't a moment that I don't get a response within 24 hours from a partner at Huron. It's just, if they treat me as a vendor like that, I can only imagine how well they treat their customers. So thank you, Ray, very much, and Dave. Stephanie, I know that we've got a hard stop here. Do we have time for maybe one question?
Yeah. Yeah, we have one or two. Yeah. We'll keep it going a little bit. I think kind of you guys like talked about it a lot, but what is your number one thing a customer can do to ensure smooth data migration out of everything? Number one.
Start early.
Mm.
Do not
I was
wait.
going to say that.
That is the number one thing. People wait. They wait. Oh, well, we'll get to it. Or, hey, our data is going to be okay. And then once they figure out how much data they're going to convert and how far back they're going, there's always data issues. So start early.
Yeah, that's
Great.
a great recommendation. Basically, the way that we help you guys there is by providing tools and techniques where we've looked at how do we go about best cleansing the data, how do we go about mapping the data, and just really understanding what needs to happen there. So figuring out what that strategy is early on, and then putting a plan together, which, it ends up being an elephant. But how do you eat an elephant? You eat an elephant one bite at a time. And you, as Dave alluded to, you got to have that progression that it goes through. And we're setting metrics along the way to say, here's the checkpoint of where we want to be from a data quality perspective along the way. So
Spot
just
on.
wanted to add that.
Awesome. Okay, one more. And if anyone has any other questions, I'll be sending out everyone's info. You can always ask after the fact. It's no big deal. What are customers most surprised by post conversion or go live?
We work very hard on our process with our methodology to avoid surprises.
Fair
Typically,
enough.
what we see is when we have a business process change, everybody always says, oh, hey, one day this could happen. One day this might happen. And they evaluate how they handle that. I always tell customers, your one day, you need to reverse it because they all happen on day one. So be thorough, review, validate your data. One of the biggest things is to spend your time validating. When Huron goes through a conversion, we have a prescribed process where we do pre-validation, we do the conversion, we see the errors that may or may not come out. We then do a post-validation process and then reconcile back to what the file was that we were provided, but also then a cloud to legacy system reconciliation for the area that was converted to make sure things match up and sync up to avoid those day one things. The other big thing for cloud that is different that probably crops up on the first day or at go live that some people are surprised by is security and how tight that security can or can't be based on what you've designed out. So That
Yeah,
is one of the, especially for people not involved in the testing that didn't pay attention. That's usually one of the things that comes up.
Yeah, and Dave, pretty much hit the nail on the head. I mean, one of the things you want to do is, from a testing perspective, you do want to have a really broad understanding of the testing that you have to go through in order for this to be successful. Look, when you go live, there's always going to be some scenarios that you didn't think of that occurred. What you're looking to achieve from a testing perspective is that you don't miss anything critical, right? So that's key from a testing perspective, that, hey, we thoroughly tested the system. We've gone through the month-end process. We've gone through the year-end process. We always allocate time to walk through those steps. I think some of the other consulting firms might do month end, but they don't do a year end. And then there's some surprise that occur at the year end activities. So again, thorough testing. You try to test for everything you can. And make sure you hit the critical spots. But there's always one or two things that come up. And again, you got to have a partner that's there, that's supporting you from a hypercare perspective, making sure that you've got the right time allocated to support anything that might come up after go live, right? We can't predict the future. We can't, plan for everything. But again, just make sure you've got the support available to you.
And that's Ray, that was definitely spot on. And what we typically talk about within Huron is think about what you do. What do you do weekly, daily, monthly, quarterly, semi-annually, and annually, especially when you get to that user acceptance testing. What is a day in a life? But think about everything you might do at different periodic times and make sure you have a scenario to test that.
Yep.
Okay, great. Yeah. Well, before, I let Ray, Dave, Steve say their final remarks, I just want to thank everyone for joining us today. And thank you to Ray, Dave, for great presentation. Love the passion too. Dave, the passion for more fraps. I loved it. It was good. It was entertaining. And just remind everybody that you will get the recording by the end of the week. If you have any other questions, we will give contact information. Feel free to reach out. So no worries about that. I'll also send that with you. So Steve, you anything to say?
No, I just wanted to thank Ray and Dave, and thank you, Stephanie, and all of the attendees, and have a great rest of the day and enjoy the next session.
Yeah, Ray, Dave, anything? All good?
Yeah, no, the only thing I would add, and Steve, thank you so much for the kind words there. And really our philosophy is, hey, this is your journey, right? The client's journey that you want to walk through. We're not forcing you to follow a set in stone path that we're creating. Now, we do have a methodology we like to follow, but we're very agile and willing to collaborate with a client to make sure that we're going in the direction that's going to work for all of us here, right? So I think that's a little bit of what Steve was speaking to, is that, hey, it is your journey, it's not ours, and we're here to help facilitate that. So thank you again, and feel free to reach out to us if you've got any questions. Our contacts are available in the slide deck, so feel free to reach out to us if you do have questions.
Thanks, Steve, for everything. But there's one other thing I want to make sure we hit on, because this, again, something I've experienced directly, and that is when you get more for apps, remember that you're getting a fully supported application. I have dealt with support. It's been a quick turnaround, fixed my problems, explained what I missed or didn't miss, and helped me resolve my issue in a timely, efficient, manner, which is another big piece to the more for app solution. So.
All right.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you guys. Appreciate it. And thank you everybody, and have a great rest of your day.
All right.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.